Breaking news tonight, Daniel Levy has stepped down as Tottenham Hotspur chairman after nearly 25 years at the club. Good evening, welcome along to the Premier League show at the end of an era for Spurs as the longest serving chairman in the Premier League leaves the club. We're going to get Lee Hendry's reaction to that very shortly, and Dave Reed is alongside me here. This is what he said in a statement then. Let's take a look at what he's had to say this evening. I'm incredibly proud, he says, of the work I have done together with the executive team and all our employees. We have built this club into a global heavyweight competing at the highest level. More than that, we have built a community. I was lucky enough to work with some of the greatest people in this sport, from the team at Lily-White House and Hotspur Way to all the players and managers over the years. I wish to thank the fans that have supported me over the years. Hasn't always been an easy journey, he says, but significant progress has been made. I will continue to support this club passionately. I mean, Lee, we're still reacting to this news. I mean, it's shocked us all, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I think someone that's been around the football club for quite some time, and usually you get the whispers and the rumours and the noise around things like this, don't you? And I think that's why it's shocked. Well, it certainly shocked all of us, really. I think it shook the world of football, I'd say, and yeah. Spurs fans in particular, good or bad. Like I said, I think I'm sure they've gone through worse times where he's felt that he could walk away from it. But he's always been a stubborn man. He's always been a well-driven man that's been shrewd in the way he approaches things. He gets on with things, and quite crazy, all of a sudden he steps down. I really don't understand it. I'm sure that there'll be more stories that will come out eventually of why, or maybe he's just felt that it was time for him to step back and walk away. But really, I mean, it is massive breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, he has overseen some epic changes. Look at that, 24 years, 16 managers, 1 trophy, time for change. That's what the fans were saying. Dave, what do we know about this story so far? I mean, it only broke, 10 minutes ago? Yeah,
in the last 15 minutes, we learnt the news via a statement from the club that after 25 years, Daniel Levy stepping down from his role as executive chair. And as Lee quite rightly points out, Daniel Levy has been a figurehead of Tottenham Hotspur for more than 2 decades. He has grown to become one of the most recognisable figures within Premier League football. Now, people, as you saw from some of those pictures there that we've been bringing you, that there has been pressure on Daniel Levy over those years. I think some of the main criticisms that he has had is around a lack of investment in the football side of it, a lack of trophies as well. And I think that has hurt him. He's gone on record and said that the criticism has hurt him over the years. And he gave an interview to The Overlap and Gary Neville, which we ran on Sky Sports as well, talking about how he goes into the weekend and it ruins his weekend when Tottenham Hotspur lose a game. You cannot question his commitment to the football club over that time. And he also points out within that statement, and it is right to point this out, that he has overseen a transformation of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club into one of the leading football clubs in the world. I've been lucky enough to go to the training ground, the new training ground, which is absolutely amazing, one of the best not only in England but also in the world, with the facilities that they have on offer there. He's seen the move into the new stadium, which is one of the best stadiums in the world. He has seen the club through the COVID-19 pandemic. He has seen the club grow in its stature and grow in its nature. There have been mistakes along the way, no doubt about that. And I think he has openly admitted that mistakes have been made. And I think he was disappointed with the way it ended for Ange Postecoglou. That was the big decision, really, that he had to make in the summer, whether it was right to keep Ange Postecoglou after winning the Europa League, and whether it was the right time to move on. So I think from Tottenham's point of view, they have been looking at the future. Vinay Venkateshan was appointed as chief executive earlier this year, and now there's going to be a new person involved with the club as well, Peter Charrington, who's been appointed in a newly created role of non-executive chair. Interestingly and significantly, at the end of Tottenham's statement, they talk about there's going to be no changes to the ownership or shareholder structure of the club, and Daniel Levy is a minority shareholder of the football club at the moment. So that's where we stand at the moment. This story will obviously develop as we're on air, but certainly perhaps a surprise at the timing of this news. We were all taken a little bit by surprise in the office when this has come out. But certainly over the years, Daniel Levy has talked about what will happen post his era. So he's also talked about on record that he would be open to leaving the club. So it's not something that's been totally come as a surprise, you would say, but maybe the timing.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, we're all scrabbling as to try and find out the reasons behind this. But obviously, as Dave pointed out, you know, the club's heading in the right direction, you'd have to say, at the moment. They've got Thomas Frank on board. They didn't have a bad window. They've got Xavi Simons in as a late incomer. You know, things were looking rosy, you'd have to say, in the Tottenham garden. And the timing of this seems very strange.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've just touched on, you know, the development of the football club and where it's come, and he's played a big part in that, hasn't he? There's no doubt of that. Listen, the fans want more. They want silverware. They want to be amongst the elite, the top clubs. When you've got that foundation sitting in the background, I think that's where, you know, you want to get to them situations where you're coming up against the cities of the world, the Arsenals and the Chelseas and whatnot, and competing at the top level in Champions League. And maybe he just feels it's the time. You know, he's set up a fabulous football club there. He's been a part of it for such a long time. Big fan of the football club. I mean, we don't see that very often these days, do we? I mean, I'll go back to our club where, you know, Doug Ellis was one who was probably a big fan of the football club, and he always come under criticism. But sometimes you need to, you go so far where you feel that you've took the club to a certain level, you take a step back, and maybe someone with a different view of how they can take the club forward, maybe that's it. As Dave said, it will develop over time of where and why he's took that decision to step down. But you know, it's a football club that's certainly got the foundations of being one of the best football clubs in the world, if not, if that's the case, that why he's took that step down.
OK, let's get more reaction to this. We can join Ricky Sachs from the Last Word on Spurs podcast. Ricky, your reaction, first of all, how shocked are you?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, like I say, we've been used to the same person in charge for the last 25 years, so a quarter of a century. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy the last half an hour or so having to react to the news. And I think, you know, for a lot of Tottenham fans, they come to terms with it. There'll be some that are absolutely delighted out there. I think majority would be. There'll be some that maybe are unknown to what the future holds. But at the same time, I think we have to see obviously what comes next. But there'll be a lot of fans that are happy with Daniel Levy's departure because of the fact that the club only registered 2 trophies in the last 17 years. And for a club like Tottenham, that before Daniel's time, before Enoch's time, it was a club that was known to be hugely successful in terms of trophies. I think a lot of Tottenham fans will hope that we can be restored to those times where winning trophies wasn't the fact of having to wait 17 years. So I guess, guys, it's a step into the unknown, a step into the future. And I think as Spurs fans, we can only hope it's a positive step in the right direction. But I think, again, like I say, you've had the same man there at the helm for, you know, well over a quarter of a century. It's, again, news you're having to come to terms with.
Yeah, Ricky, are you surprised about the timing of it? Because as I was pointing out, you know, everything seems to be heading in the right direction. You know, you've kind of dealt with all the frustration, surely.
Well, I'll be honest with you, we've heard murmurs that there's potentially some ballroom reshuffle at Tottenham, to be honest with you. So I have to say, even to give credit, someone that's part of our podcast, Lee McQueen, bless him, called this quite a long time ago that there would be movement in the ballroom and Daniel Levy would eventually be stepping down. But I think the thing is, with the nature of such a departure, it's one of those where, quite frankly, you only believe it when you see it because of the fact of how Daniel has been so long at the football club. So, and as you guys are aware, there's been a number of protests, high-profile protests in the last 12, 18 months from Change for Spurs, and the fact that fans haven't been happy with the nature of Spurs, certainly in the league in general, but also the way in which the club hasn't really found a sense of direction over the last 5.5, 6, 7 years, probably dating back to when Pochettino's time at the club felt everything was in some firm alignment, that there was a real direction of where the club was going, a vision in terms of competing right at the very top when it comes to playing in the Champions League, when it comes to, of course, alongside that, competing for the league as well. And as we as a fan base, we want to be ambitious. We want to see the club obviously strive to be what it can be. I think we saw that after the scenes of Bilbao. Obviously, of course, we had it at that parade where you saw thousands upon thousands of Tottenham fans, obviously outside the stadium, and those scenes that kind of showed you what the club could be if it had that significant investment. But back to your point, look, we've just had the end of the transfer window. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of timing, you could say it's a bit bizarre, but then would there ever have been a right time? Would there ever have been a wrong time for Daniel Levy to step aside? I think what we all hope now as a fan base is that this is certainly a potential uplift in the direction of where the club want to be, where it wants to strive, and put us back on a map where winning trophies, competing for trophies, is a regular occurrence, and not once every 17 years we win one. So only time will tell on that. I think it's important to note at the moment that it's only Daniel Levy that is leaving the club in terms of the structure and the shareholding from ENIC in general. So there's no real massive boardroom reshuffle in terms of more people going out with Daniel at this stage. So you can only call it for how you see it right now. And again, element being, it's a case of waiting to see what the future does hold for the football club.
Ricky, obviously the club are going to thank him for everything that he's done. Would you concur with those thoughts? Would you thank him for everything he's done?
I mean, look, in terms of what he's done for Tottenham from a, stadium perspective and training ground perspective, you can thank him for that. But I think, again, from my perspective, I'm a football fan that wants to see my club win trophies, wants to see my club compete. And there could be an argument to say that there's a lot of Tottenham fans that before Daniel's time, Tottenham were a club in the 80s or say the early 90s that were, pottering around kind of mid-table when he took Tottenham to a side where they were, pushing on for Europe and pushing on for the Champions League. So there is that argument there. Look, for me personally, I won't be a hypocrite. I've called for change for quite a number of years. And I think Daniel Levy has been obviously at the top of that when it comes to the fact of whoever's been in control of the financial element of Tottenham. It feels like we've been really held back, certainly in the last 4, 5, 6 years. So look, personally for me, I don't dislike or hate Daniel Levy as a human being. I wish him personally all the best for his own future. But at the same time, I think this could be a massive positive step for Tottenham fans in general if it's an element of the fact that we may get a club that's going to be more ambitious, striving to win trophies, and we'll get back to hopefully a level where, we don't have to wait, as I keep on saying, sorry to sound like a broken record, one trophy in 17 years isn't good enough for a club the size of Tottenham, where Tottenham want to be, and certainly where the fans want us to be. So I think at the moment we want to look at it as a positive direction, but at the same time it is a step into the unknown because Daniel Levy has been here for a quarter of a century. It's all we've known. So I guess time is going to tell in terms of if this will be a positive element or a negative element for Tottenham. But certainly it is groundbreaking news. I think, he's the longest serving chairman in the Premier League. And therefore that in itself is a massive change to how the structure is looking like, even from a Premier League perspective. I think we've seen in the summer really Tottenham's difficulty in getting certain deals done where Daniel was mostly in negotiations for some of the key deals that didn't happen this summer, the likes of Barretti Eze, Morgan Gibbs-White. Partly I don't hold Daniel responsible for the Morgan Gibbs-White deal, but it does feel with Tottenham that there would always be a situation when you went into negotiations for players, it would always be a war in terms of trying to get players to the football club. So look, does this change in terms of Tottenham from a transfer perspective, from a ambition perspective? I think we have to wait and see. But there's no doubt in terms of the stadium, what he built there, the training ground, what he built, that, like he said himself, is going to be his legacy. That's what he hopes he's going to be remembered for. But as supporters, we want to win trophies. We want to be successful. We want to be ambitious. And that hasn't changed. I think the key thing about it is players will go, managers will go, staff will go, whether that's chairman, whether that's owners, but the fans will always be here. And the fans are always going to want to see the club strive to be successful, strive to be the very, very best. And that's what you have to hope Tottenham will always want to be.
Ricky, I'm listening to what, the breaking news, and it's one of them situations that I can hear you, you're very excited about exactly what, possibly could be. And to be fair, you are stepping into the unknown. You've just said it yourself.
Absolutely.
Could this be one of them where, you're thinking, wow, we've gotten Daniel Levy's back at times and this could potentially go the other way. I mean, you're talking about having success and bringing some money, but someone's leaving that football club that knows the surroundings, you've said, where they've come since he's been in and took over. Yes, the stadium, the training ground, the transfers, the manager that's even come in this season. I mean, this could potentially be, one of them where you look at it and go, well, what are we wishing for here? This could end up going completely the opposite way.
Yeah, Lee, look, it's a difficult one because, again, we're not sure what that next chapter, that next step looks like. But, I'd be a hypocrite to sit here and say that this is not what a lot of Tottenham fans have wanted for a very, very long time. And look, I can't speak for all Tottenham fans. I can only speak for some that I know very, very well, that they've wanted change at the club for a very, very long time. I mean, change doesn't really get much bigger than the executive chairman stepping down. So it's a very good point. We don't know what the future holds, but at the same time, be careful what you wish for. I wish for a club that hopefully is going to win more than 2 trophies in the last 17 years. And, Tottenham have got a rich history. When you go back and look at Tottenham in the 70s, the 80s, this is a club that is renowned for being a cup-winning team, for winning trophies. Yes, we didn't win season in, season out, but it's a club that was known for competing and, for being a club that does get over the line. In the, I'd say, reign before Daniel Levy and Enoch, there's no guarantee that Daniel's departure means Tottenham will definitely win trophies. Again, it all will come down to, let's be honest about it, what the next steps are. And to be honest with you, Lee, like you said, we don't know what the next steps are. That's why maybe in my voice there's an element of excitement, but also a hesitancy as to what comes next. But I can't be a hypocrite on here, guys. I've said, the last 2.5 years or so, I think we have seen up until the Frank appointment, I would say, again, a situation around Spurs where there's just been lack of direction, maybe to some degree a lack of structure around what success ultimately looks like. Yes, we won in Bilbao. Yes, we won the Europa League. Yes, it was an incredible night, but there's been, I would say, very little feeling to some degree over the last however many years that Tottenham's trophy success would be sustainable. I think this is the key. Spurs have won the odd, like we say, League Cup, in his time, Daniel. You go back 2 trophies in 17 years. I think Tottenham fans and the fan base we are and how loyal we are, we deserve more than that. There's no guarantee in football you're going to get that, don't get me wrong. But I think many will look at this as potentially a massive, monumental moment, a sliding doors moment in the history of Tottenham Hotspur. A man that's been there for over a quarter of a century. Yes, he's overseen the training ground. Yes, he's overseen the stadium. But he's also overseen only 2 trophies in the last 17 years. And for a club of Tottenham's size, their heritage, their stature, we want more than that. I know the fans want more than that. We strive for more than that. We're an ambitious football club. We've got an ambitious fan base. We want to win. And I think that's the thing about Bilbao, what we saw in the summer. As Spurs fans, we don't want to wait another 17 years for a trophy. It doesn't mean Daniel's departure guarantees another trophy. It also doesn't guarantee, at this stage, anything. We're in the unknown now. And I think the next few days are going to be very, very interesting to find out a little bit more about how Tottenham are going to be changing. Because, this is a big shell shock. As you can probably tell, guys, this happened half an hour ago. I'm reacting to this news fresh off the press. So, it is a lot to react to and try and get your head around at this stage.
Are you actually pleased with this decision? Are you actually pleased? I mean, obviously I'm listening to what you're saying, but are you pleased? And do you think the majority of the fans are going to be, rubbing their hands and thinking, right, this is the change in Spurs. This is going to be us taking that drive forward now?
Yeah, it'd be wrong of me, Lee, to be a hypocrite and sit here and say that I wanted Daniel Levy to stay when I've advertly said on a lot of the shows on Last One on Spurs that the club need a change directly at the top. And Daniel Levy's the executive chairman. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of fans would take that step into the unknown to see if we're able to get over this situation where it's 2 trophies in 17 years. It's a club that wants to compete. It's a fan base that is hungry for more success. Sorry to sound like a broken record. We saw that in the summer in Bilbao and then back at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with the parade. We had over 200,000 Tottenham fans turn out outside that stadium. And I said this at the point when that happened, that we cannot have a situation where we are waiting another 17 years for a trophy. And it might not have been the case under Daniel to say that, but at the end of the day, this is a fan base that wants success. We're craving success. We want more of what we've had. And, sometimes a step into the unknown could be a great thing. I think we saw it with Mike Ashley at Newcastle, for example. I've said this for quite a long time that I just felt under Daniel we was in this sort of hamster wheel where we were existing in terms of being, a football club. But we didn't ever feel that we were really massively moving how can I say this in the most politest way? We weren't really moving the needle, I would say, in terms of a club that was going to really seriously push on. If you look at what the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, United, Liverpool, City have spent, and let me make this clear, it's not all about money. It's not all about money. But the reality is that we're in a Premier League now where unless you spend a significant amount of money on the certain specific calibre of players, it's very, very hard to be successful in this league. And I think the thing with Daniel is, whilst he's been superb in terms of the financials at Tottenham, and I can knock him for that in terms of making sure the club is always on the right side of PSR, it has always felt like, to some degree, we have been held back when it comes to being able to compete right at the very, very top. Now, again, with Daniel's departure, we can't be falling into thinking it's all going to change at the club, because let's be honest about it, ENIC still are in control of the football club. Daniel Levy was part of ENIC. He was the chairman of ENIC. He has stepped away. So there's absolutely no guarantee by Daniel's departure it means suddenly, we're going to turn into an absolute, super club and start spending millions and billions. But I think if you ask a lot of fans out there, they would like to see a change. They would like to see something different. And whether we like it or not, that is what we're certainly going to get.
Just finally, I mean, I've listened to everything you've said there, Ricky, and, you said you're an ambitious fan base. Show me a fan base that isn't ambitious, quite frankly. But in terms of what happened just recently, I don't know where you are in the camp of getting Thomas Frank in then, because, you win your trophy, the trophies that you really want. You had your manager, Ange Postecoglou, and then there was this clamour for his exit as well, and that pleased some fans and then didn't please other fans. Where did you stand on that? So, Was Levy having to bow to fan pressure? Is that what you feel? And you feel he's just had enough? Where did you stand on getting rid of Ange Postecoglou? Was that the right decision from Levy or not?
Yeah, look, I mean, I understand the question. I know I don't want to go over old ground. Look, I've said this before. I've got massive, massive respect for Ange Postecoglou. He delivered Tottenham their first European trophy in over 40 years, ended a 17-year trophy drought. This is not to do down Ange Postecoglou. A club like Tottenham simply can't have 22 plus defeats in the Premier League, and certainly can't be a club that you go into games fearing you're going to get beat most weeks. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to Ange Postecoglou, but Spurs also made that clear in their statement of why they let Ange go, that the Premier League campaign was simply unacceptable. And whilst, again, for me, I thank Ange for giving me one of the best weeks of my footballing life as a supporter, I think it was very difficult to see how Ange Postecoglou could continue, despite the fact of giving Tottenham fans one of their best ever weeks as a football fan. But if you look at, like I say,
but sorry, Ricky, but how ridiculous does that kind of sound? I mean, I'm really playing devil's advocate a little bit here, but you can understand how that sounds. He gave you exactly what you want, and then everyone's like, get rid.
But why couldn't we have both? Why couldn't we also be a competitive team in the Premier League and also win a European trophy? Why has it got to be 17th and a European trophy? Why can't it be?
But if you look at clubs that work traditionally, if you look at clubs that's worked over the last 10 years, it's the clubs that have kept hold of their managers, not fired after 2 years. Mikel Arteta was under huge pressure initially. Look what he's done. Jurgen Klopp didn't have the best starts. Pep Guardiola is. The list goes on.
With all due respect, that these clubs didn't finish 17th and didn't, lose 22 plus games in a season. Like I said, I don't want to be disrespectful to Ange Postecoglou, because, again, he gave us one of our best weeks in our life as Spurs supporters. I think if you asked many, many fans right now, not all of them, because, again, I've got members in our community at Lastford and Spurs that don't all feel the same. I think many would say they've been really impressed with what they've seen with Thomas Frank so far, and they feel like we're heading in the right direction. That's not to do down Ange and what he achieved at Tottenham. He'll always be a legend. He won a European trophy. That's not to do him down. But like I say, for a club like Tottenham, there's no reason why we cannot win trophies and also be competitive in the league. I think we have to just make that clear. Where we are right now, I think we've got a really excited manager. We've got a really exciting group of young players and some decent players that we bought in the transfer window as well. With the right support around the manager and the playing staff, there's a real good opportunity for Tottenham to be successful here. And that's why I feel on the back of that news of Daniel Levy departing, there'll be a lot of fans maybe excited for the future to think, are we going to slightly even more so release the financial shackles and really try and push on as a football club? Or is there going to be a situation where nothing's going to massively change, ENIC is still in control, but Daniel has stepped down? And to be honest with you, at the moment, like the guys have said as well, it's hard to know that. We are simply reacting to this news so fresh in the last half an hour or so. We're only going to know more, and time will tell. But again, look, no one can take away from Daniel. He delivered a sensational training ground, sensational stadium, but ultimately at the end of the day, the game and for fans, it's about winning. I would go and watch Tottenham if it's over Hackney Marshes, with all due respect. The stadium's beautiful. Everyone loves the stadium. But at the same time, you pay your money to see your team win and to see your team win trophies. And on the back of what we saw in Bilbao in the summer, there's Tottenham fans out there, like all fans, like you said, absolutely desperate and hungry for success. And maybe, just maybe, this could be a step where Tottenham may go in the future to realising that prospect of becoming a team that is regularly competing for trophies, along with also trying to also compete and have a decent league finish at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. We've seen teams do both as well.
Oh, I know you're so passionate. Thank you so much, Ricky. And I gave you a tough time, so sorry for that.
You tested me. You grill me. You're absolutely fine. You're all good.
Thank you, Ricky. We will get more reaction. Lee was literally champing at the bit to get back in there. Then we need to take a break. We'll get more reaction to the news that Daniel Levy has stepped down as Spurs chairman tonight.